We've just arrived at Appleyard Motorcycles in Keighley to pick up the new Voge DS800X Rally. Looking forward to this. So that's me, just picked up the brand new DS800X Rally from Voge. Got the train down to Appleyard Motorcycles in Keighley. It was all done pretty quickly. Probably got the too thicker gloves on for today. It was a bit cold this morning setting off. But anyhow, so this is it. First time I've sat on the bike. First time I've thrown a leg over. See if I can work out what's going on. Shouldn't be too hard, I wouldn't have thought. Three miles from new. Right. Let's get off then. That's me fueled up, so I treated to some V-Power, some E5. It was flashing next to nothing on the tank when I first picked it up, so I've managed to get 18.67 litres in it, and that's it, absolutely brimmed to the top. So that will do us now, hopefully for a few hundred miles, and get this thing running. Right, my hands are already too hot, so I'm going to switch to my other gloves. So we shall try again. Lots of engine braking, that's the first thing that I noticed. And the clutch comes out really quickly. Biting point's very close. Just approaching Kirby Lonsdale now. We've done 45 miles. I'm going to stop off here and get some lunch. Get a bacon roll or something from the burger van and see some other bikers, because there's always plenty here. Here we go. Even on a Monday. Right, we start off at Devil's Bridge. I've had a coffee and a bacon and egg roll. We're about to do the second part of the journey now. I've deliberately parked this way just so I can show you what it's like to Fred Flintstone back out of a parking bay. It actually feels reasonably light, it's not too bad to be honest. Slight uphill. That was a lot easier than I thought. It's certainly a lot easier than the KTM. Right, let's continue on. Been on the bike about an hour now. Done 45 miles. So probably enough time to be able to get a good feel for it. Right, we'll get on the road and I'll give you my initial impressions, what I like and what I don't like about it so far. So initial biting point on the clutch, it's quite close to the handlebars. Don't know if that's just a trait of this or because it's quite new, but it's got a close biting point. Not that that's a problem, it's just an observation. It has stalled on me twice, just coming up to roundabouts and junctions as I've been going down the gears. It did that within the first mile or two of leaving the dealer, but it's not done it since, so I don't know if that was just my rider error, the way that I was approaching gears and the engine braking, or it was like a flame out Euro 5 style thing. We'll keep our eye on that as we go. Quite a lot of free play slack in the throttle. That's probably something that can be adjusted, really, if you consider it's a cable throttle. It's not right by wire, so we could maybe take some slack out of that and see how we get on. It's not bad, I can live with it. It's certainly rideable. It's just on that on-off throttle, see how much my hand's moving there on the throttle without actually doing any input, which to me, I would like that a little bit less play. I don't know if it will help with any low throttle snatchiness, but it'll be fine as it is. I've found the modes work all the time with the throttle on or off. So for instance, I'm at a steady throttle now, I can press the mode and that'll change to sport, so that is a good thing. The KTM, I find that on that, well, I don't find, I just know on the KTM you have to select which sort of throttle mapping or which rider mode you want, and you have to release the throttle, close the throttle completely before it will change. This one just seems to do it instantly. The ABS button does nothing whilst you're riding, you have to be stopped, and I've had that with the ignition on and with the engine not running. You have to press and hold the ABS button, and it's quite good in the fact that it can select both wheels off or just the back one off. So you can either have it where you have the front ABS still on or both ABS off. The buttons on the right, these feel nice. The fog light button there, that's got a nice click to it and is quite a nice feeling button. You can certainly tell when it's clicked on or off. You can see on the dash as well, but you wouldn't need to look. You could just click that and you would know that they've gone on. Unlike the ones on the left hand side, I'm finding with the indicators, the center button to cancel the indicators, you can barely tell that that's been pressed. So you've got to just check on the dash to make sure that you can see that the indicator has cancelled. Maybe something I'll get used to, but I was thinking if you had thicker gloves on, it would certainly be something that you might not be able to feel the dexterity of that button. Similar with the like up, down, left, right buttons on the left. The traction control one on the left hand side, that only seems to work when you are at a stop. You've got to press and hold the button to get the traction control to come on. I think if you just do it now whilst I'm riding, doesn't seem to do anything at all. Yeah, that's been pressed for a very long time now, so I would say that the traction control can only be switched on or off when you're at a standstill. I tried it before, but it was only with the ignition on and the engine not running, so I'm not sure if you can do it with the engine running. I will get back to you on that. The buttons, these, the left, right, up, down button, I would like to see more on my dash other than just the trip and the total mileage. I'd like to see maybe, you know, your miles per gallon or your fuel range or something like that. I've not worked out how to do that yet. I am finding that these buttons at the moment don't seem to do anything at all. They don't seem to change anything whilst you're riding, so I can't scroll down any menus or go through anything. The only thing that seems to happen is it wants you to connect to the app using the QR code there. So it looks like to get into some menus, into some things, you need to connect it with your phone or do something, but that's maybe to do with the navigation and the your telephone and that sort of stuff. So at the moment I'm not really finding that you can do much at all on the screen whilst you're riding. All I know is there's a fuel gauge, but it doesn't tell you the range, the temperature and the trip counter. So I'd like to have a look at changing that if I can. I'll just sit on the bike with the ignition on and just go through all the buttons, work out exactly what's what. Last resort will be to look at the manual, but I won't be doing that. So the screen in sport mode is green, which is a peculiar colour to have as a sports mode in my opinion. Normally when you click sports in cars and things like that, it turns everything red, because as we know, red is faster. But on here it's green when it's in sports mode, and then blue when it's in normal, and as you can see it changes the kind of location of the rev counter on the screen. That's like perfectly central and like a full circle with the speedo in the middle, whereas in sports mode it kind of offsets the speedo, like that circle becomes bigger and just crops the right hand side of the circle somewhat. I can't say I've noticed much difference yet in the throttle mapping between normal and sport. I'll probably just always keep it in sport, but if it's one of those where it goes back to normal every single time you turn the ignition on or off, I'd probably just leave it in normal. With this being a brand new bike, it's only done 50 miles. We've got to run the engine in or run the bike in. So I see a bit of a difference between the two there. Running the engine in is all to do with sealing the bores, sealing the piston rings, getting everything nice and sealed, making sure that you've got good compression to give you a good reliable engine in the years to come. So one school of thought is take it easy, not going above 6,000 revs, not going above a certain throttle percentage, all that kind of stuff. And another train of thought is you just give it the beans right from the off. Some race bikes and race engines, they just go on the dyno and they get absolutely hammered from the word go, just to make sure that those bores are sealed and the piston rings are bedded in. But the thing with that is race engines aren't kind of built or designed to last thousands and thousands of miles. So I would go with somewhere in between. I have been at full throttle on this and I have taken it above 6,000 revs. But what I'm trying to do is on-off throttle, up and down the gears, open the revs, up the gear, and then the engine braking. Now as soon as I got on this bike I noticed the engine braking was quite strong, which is not a bad thing. It's just a different engine characteristic. Yeah, so the engine braking's nice. It's not a vibey bike. I rode it for almost an hour before I even thought about vibrations, which tells me that it can't be that vibey, otherwise I would have noticed. You feel some vibrations through the handlebars, but it's not bad, and I don't think it's enough to class it as a vibey bike. Then you've got the 21-inch front wheel with a sort of 40% off-road, 60% on-road split tyre, the Pirelli Rally. So that will give a few vibrations. You've got the parallel twin engine, but the 270-degree crank that makes it kind of feel or sound a little bit like a V-twin supposedly. But that doesn't really give you any vibrations. I don't get any vibrations through my feet. I do have the rubber pads still in, but I'm not really feeling any vibrations at all, and I don't feel any vibrations through the seat. So in regards to the engine, it does feel like a really nice smooth engine, I'll give it that, and it sounds wicked. Even with the standard exhaust, I'm loving the sound of this bike. It does a couple of pops and bangs now and then, just going into roundabouts and things. It's oh, that's that on-off throttle situation, which is we'll just keep blaming Euro 5 for that, or Chinese mappers. But the engine just seems to be really sweet above 3,500 revs. That's where I find the sweet spot is. Below that it seems a little bit laboured, and when you're running in a bike and an engine, you don't really want to be labouring it too much anyway, so try and keep the revs above 3,000 or 4,000 revs, and then it's just silky smooth and pulls really nice. I find it's got a nice bark above, like when you get to 6,000 revs, it's just like a... I think that sounds wicked for a standard exhaust and a standard legal system with a cat and everything. I think that sounds really, really good. So yeah, I was talking earlier about running in engines and running in bikes. So the difference I feel between running in an engine and running in a bike is, on the bike you have a gearbox, you have brakes, you have head bearings, you have wheel bearings, you have brake pads, you have chain, you have sprocket. All of these things are pretty much brand new. My bike only had like 3 miles on when I picked it up. So when I say running the bike in, I'm thinking of more things like getting the gearbox up to temperature, getting the brakes up to temperature, bedding the brakes into the discs. There's a lot of moving parts, moving levers, spinning things, spinning bearings. All of those are all brand new and they're all moving parts. So those metals will take some bedding in to free up and work optimal. Now that's probably not going to make much of a difference, but I just have a little bit of mechanical sympathy, and the way that I ride for those first few miles is just bearing those things in mind. Don't get me wrong, if your bike has a dodgy wheel bearing or a dodgy gearbox that's come from the factory poorly built with a defect, with a manufacturing defect, it probably won't make any difference if you treat the gearbox gently or aggressively. If it's going to break, it's going to break, but it can't do any harm. Just having a bit of mechanical sympathy for that first ride and that first warm up and getting the oil up to temperature. All those gears and all the metal parts inside the engine, like the metal on metal, they're going to be sort of touching each other and getting up to temperature for the first few times and wearing in. That's probably why you should change your oil after a couple of 100 miles. Gets rid of any of that initial metal particles that have sort of been worn away on the first couple of 100 miles. Guess other things would be stuff like checking your chain tension. Your chain may get an initial play, go loose, so you want to be checking your chain tension and things like that. I tried folding in those mirrors before, I couldn't do it, just felt like I was going to snap one off. So that's something I need to look into, because they should just fold in for off-roading and getting things out of the way. So that's something that I will look into. I noticed before the TCS light wasn't on the bike, and now it is. So I've just flicked between normal mode and sports mode, and it's still on there. So I'm just wondering what we need to do to get that TCS to change. Or is the TCS showing that it's on, or is it showing that it's off? Who knows? These are the things that I'll need to read up on. So the riding position's really comfortable actually. I slouch a bit, so that's my problem, but if it's sitting up nice and straight, the riding position's good. My elbows are just about higher than the bars, but only just. It's a nice kind of sitting position, a nice place to be. The seat feels reasonably comfortable. So the seat's kind of like a rally style seat. It's quite flat, but the back portion for a pillion does come off, and you can feel it. You can feel the ridge where the pillion would sit, but you can certainly move across the seat quite easily. I've been on the bike for probably an hour and a half maybe. My bum's not numb. I can feel like I've been sat on a bike for a while, and I did see somebody review one of these after riding a Tenere and say that this was considerably more comfortable than the Tenere. To me, it's neither here or there. It's alright, it's a decent enough seat. I can feel some sponginess in it. It's not too wide, it's just like a nice decent place to be. So that little screen in front, it does seem to do a reasonable job. I was doing 75, 77 miles an hour there, and I didn't feel any wind on my chest or my shoulders. It was absolutely fine. I am getting some on my top of my head. I'm not getting anything to eye level with that screen, but just above there is a bit of wind around about my visor level, which is unfortunate because with having this RI2X helmet with the peak, that does catch the wind a bit. So it's just something, if I'm set up perfectly straight, I do feel the wind on the peak. If I just duck my head down and slouch, that goes away as the wind goes over the peak. Maybe one of those tiny little deflectors on the top might help with that. But overall, considering it's a very thin, narrow screen, I don't feel any wind on my arms at all, or my shoulders. It feels like a really nice place to be to cruise at 70 miles an hour. It's not an issue at all. I found it feels a lot more agile than I was expecting it to be. It feels a lot lighter than the KTM 1290 Super Adventure. Even though the Super Adventure is on 19-inch wheels, this bike just feels very quick and very agile on the front end. It just seems to change direction really quick. And that counter steering really makes a huge difference to that initial turn. And turning in, it just feels quite good. Might be to do with the Pirelli tyres. I mean, they are an off-road kind of 40-60 split. And the KTM had its original meat-ass road tyres, but to me this is very impressive how it holds its weight. It feels really light and nimble. I'm looking forward to getting it off-road, but yeah, initial thoughts are it's a lot lighter to me than what I was expecting. And I'm quite used to heavy bikes and I'm reasonably strong, but I know that adventure biking, there's a lot to be said for having a light bike, and these middleweight or mid-size adventure bikes, 800, 900cc, to me, that's never been a middleweight adventure bike. I would have thought that lightweight adventure bikes should be under 150 kilos. Anything that's 200 kilos to me is a heavy bike. But now with the really big bikes like the Super Adventure and the BMW GSAs and things, they are now starting to become like very heavy bikes. So I guess that's pushed the boundaries of what a heavyweight adventure bike and a midweight or lightweight adventure bike is. We will be picking up a Voge 300 rally next week, which we'll be able to do some good comparisons with. It's a lot lighter than this, but it's also a lot less powerful than this. That should be better off-road, this should be better on-road. So we'll be able to have a look at them and compare and contrast. And at the same time, we already have a Voge DS800X as well, which is on the Pirelli Scorpion trail tyres, so much more road-focused tyres. Slightly bigger bike, slightly bigger engine. It doesn't put out much more power than this, being an 800, but it will have more torque. So we'll be able to see what the difference is on road with those. And that one has a bigger screen as well. So again, it'll be just good to see where this sits. I'm expecting it to sit right in the middle of the 300 and 900. This should be better off-road than the 900. Not as good as the 300, but also not as good on the road or as comfortable as the 900. So that'll be certainly interesting to see. It has a really nice bark at 6,000 revs. I know I've said it before, but I've not really taken it much higher than 6,000 to 7,000 revs, I'm not sure what the engine characteristics are like, and I will try and gradually take the revs further up. But to me, it feels like that sweet spot of torque and power is just at about 6,000. It just pulls really well there, and it sort of feels like there's not much point taking it to 9 or 10, because the power curve just doesn't seem like it's going to keep pulling any stronger than it does at 6,000. I mean, I could be proved wrong. I'll have to find out. Give it, it might take off at 7,000 or 8,000 revs, I'm not sure. But to me, it just feels a really lovely, sort of barky, sweet engine at 6,000. I would imagine if I was doing some forestry trails and like gravel fire roads, that's probably where I'd want to be at. Just 5,000-6,000, just whop whop. Does feel a lovely bike, I must admit. I think I should probably point out that this isn't a demo bike. It's not been given to me, it's not been loaned to me. So we've paid for this bike is mine, and anything that I do to it or say about it is all my own thoughts and will have been bought with my own money. I'm tempted to keep it standard because I think it's got everything it needs to straight from the off. The handguards are absolutely useless. They are keeping the wind off my hands, which, alright then, they're not useless. You keep the wind off my hands okay, but they are so flimsy. I mean, look at that. What's that going to do if you fall off? Not a lot, I would think. So we maybe look at some backbusters or some Acrebis or something like that. Change those. We might put some bags on the side, on here, on the side rack, like we have on the Himalayan. If anything, it just means that the bags touch the floor first if you fall off, rather than the framework. And we have also ordered the hard panniers. Now, I was within two minds about the hard panniers. For off-roading, we all know we should have soft panniers, or soft panniers are better for off-roading. Hard panniers are easier to get on and off, get in and out of. Not as good for crashing with, and there's also more chance of injury if you fall off or get your leg caught whilst you have the hard panniers on. But they should be £1,400. But if you get them when you order the bike, you get them for half price at £700. So for pannier rails, two side panniers, a rear top box, a rear back box, and it also looks like it has a soft backrest on it. So to get those three for £700 to me just seemed like a bargain, that even if we don't use them, it was still well worth getting, and we probably will use them for on-road adventures and touring. We might just not use them for off-road stuff if we have some other soft panniers that we can put on. Now, if you've seen my other video, you'll see that I've just got the Takana hippo hips fitted to the Royal Enfield Himalayan. Now, if the pannier racks on this are suitable, we may be able to fit the hippo hips onto this. One thing I did notice from the literature and seeing pictures is the pannier rails are not perfectly up and down. They kind of slope in at the top as they like hook the top of the exhaust to come into the seats. So we'll have to see how that fares up for fitting the hippo hips, and we may need to get some more of the Takana mounting plates, and then we can just swap the panniers from this bike to the Himalayan very easily, just quite a straightforward take them off one, put them on the other. That was one of the reasons I liked the Takana backing plates. But the panniers are on order. When I ordered the bike, I didn't ask for the panniers, I didn't pay for the panniers. It was just something I thought about since putting the deposit down and actually going to pick the bike up. So I made the decision that it was worth getting the panniers, so I've ordered them. I've got plenty of space to store them, so it won't be an issue just to put them out of the way. So I took it up further then. I took it up to like nearly 8,000, maybe up to 9,000 revs. And as I thought, it didn't really take off. It didn't pull my arms out the sockets and have a really blast of power at the top end. So to me, it didn't seem like it was really worth taking it all the way up there. That's not where the power and the torque is on this bike. It will have more power at the top end. It's just the way brake horsepower and revolutions work. But to me, I found that this torque, that torque there, 5, 6, 7,000 revs is where I want to be riding this bike at. That's what feels best to me. There's no point wasting revs and wasting fuel, in my opinion, taking it up to 9, 10,000 revs when it doesn't seem to have the top end va-va-voom like the KTM, for instance. You take that KTM over 5, 6,000 revs and it really rips. That thing is packing, with its remap, it's packing like 170 brake horse compared to this with 90. So it's almost double the horsepower, so it stands to reason that that thing's going to be way quicker. But 5, 6,000 revs, this thing's adequate, ample. It's not going to set any records, but I think it's going to be very usable on an off-road trail and also on a long distance bike. Everything's a compromise with an adventure bike. There is no unicorn. I bought this because I felt like it was a perfect middle distance between my Himalayan 400 and the KTM 1290. Now if I was to go down to the south of France, south of Spain, south Portugal, it's a long way to ride to do some trails on the way home. I could get there easily on the KTM 1290, no problem at all. I wouldn't want to ride it on the TET, on the off-road trails on the way home. It's got cast wheels, road tyres, and it's very heavy. Now the Himalayan 411, I'm sure that that's more than adequate of doing the ACT and the TET around France, Spain, Portugal. It'd be absolutely fine. It's still a quite heavy bike, but it holds its weight really low and really easy to ride. Now that though, would you want to be sitting at 50, 60 miles an hour? 70 miles an hour is almost flat out on it. Would you want to do 1,500, 2,000 miles to get to the south of Portugal to do the ACT on a Himalayan? Many people have. It's been all over the world. Thousands of people have done thousands and thousands of miles. But that was the only thing that put me off thinking about taking the Himalayan all the way down to the south of Europe, was the road miles to get there. And that's why I bought this. To me, this bike seems to be the best compromise at the minute in regards to being able to comfortably munch miles, doing 70, 80 miles an hour all day down the motorway, but still have off-road tyres, tubeless spoked rims, light enough hopefully for my talent to be able to do the off-road ACT and some of the TET and then get me back home again. So time will tell if I've made the right decision, but so far this bike feels nice and light, nimble, and it'll cruise at 70 miles an hour no problem. The gearbox feels sweet. There's a positive click up and down the gears. I know it doesn't have a quick shifter. I don't know why they couldn't have put a quick shifter on it if they wanted to. I know they didn't do cruise control because it's It's not like fly-by-wire, or it's got the throttle cables. So I understand the cruise control, which would have been nice for long distance, but the quick shifter, I'm not sure why they didn't put a quick shifter on it other than for cost, but it doesn't feel like it needs one to me. I mean, I can give an example here. If I'm down in third gear and I can use the clutch, no problem, to go up and down the gears. And if I really want to, just to show with a clutchless shifting, just back off the throttle slightly. You can change gear pretty quickly without a quick shifter, just backing off the throttle ever so slightly for a millisecond just as you're clicking up. That's how I raced for over 10 years on super sport bikes and super stock bikes. We never had the luxury of a quick shifter. It didn't come on the bike as standard when I was racing, and when I was in the super stocks, the R6 didn't have a quick shifter as standard, so you weren't allowed to use one. So I got used to changing up the gears as fast as I could with minimal backing off of the throttle, and I reckon I could probably do it within a couple of milliseconds of a quick shifter. And the other thing I found with the quick shifter on the KTM is sometimes I touch it by accident when I'm not ready for it, which cuts the ignition and makes a horrible jerk. And sometimes when I can't decide if I want to use the clutch or the quick shifter, it does the same thing. It kind of interrupts the ignition. It kind of thinks, well, did you want the quick shifter or not? Make your mind up. That's my rider error of not being used to a bike with a quick shifter. But so far, after a couple of hours of riding this, I've not missed not having a quick shifter. I've ridden for 30 years without a quick shifter, so I'll just ride this without one as well. I was on full throttle then. I did give it some beans, didn't take it up to red line, and I did hold it on the throttle there for a couple of seconds, but I wouldn't class that as prolonged, flat out load. It doesn't seem like it's worth it. I know I keep going on about it, but it just does not seem like it's worth revving it all the way out. It just doesn't have that top end power to me. I'm not a bike reviewer. I've ridden lots of bikes, and I've ridden bikes for decades, but some people might say it's really peaky and top endy, and other people might say it's got no bottom end. I don't know. I've not really watched a lot of in-depth reviews of this bike, but what I've found is it's got a nice torquey bottom end that kind of runs out of puff after 7,000 revs. That's my honest kind of review of the engine. It's a nice smooth engine. I really love the power delivery. I'm getting used to the engine braking now. That'll probably loosen up as well, I guess, after it's done some miles. It will still be a tight engine. Right, I think that's enough of me waffling on about things that I've got no idea about. Right, let's give it a bit of a quick start, see how we get on. Right, it did not like that. So the TCS light has gone off again now. I don't know why sometimes that's there and sometimes it's not. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but when I set off then, I set off quite quickly and it seemed to pull away okay. It didn't want to wheelie, it just pulled away fast, but then the traction control light just threw a wobbler and took all the power away, and just, it was horrible. It wasn't very nice at all, especially considering that's in sports mode. But we can see now on the dash, the TCS light has now disappeared, so what does that mean? Does that mean TCS is on or off? Why was it on before but not on now? So that 3,000 revs where we're at now, or 3,500 revs, seems to be the sort of the sweet spot of cruising. It's happy there. I can feel the engine's nice and smooth. I can feel that it will pick up if I pick up the throttle, and it will all be okay. See, now I'm under 3,000. The engine is not as smooth. I can feel a bit more vibrations from the engine. It still picks up all right though. But one thing about running an engine in is not labouring it. You don't really want to be too low in the rev range and putting too much load on the engine. I suppose what I mean by load on the engine, it's like being in 6th gear at 20 miles an hour at 2,000 revs and just opening the throttle and expecting the bike just to pick up and pull away. It's just not going to be happy with that sort of environment. Environment's not the right word. It just won't be happy doing it. It will do it and it will chug along, but it's just not in that same kind of sweet spot. I'm starting to feel it a little bit in my bum. Not got a complete numb bum, but I am feeling it a bit. I do feel like I'm sat on the back of my bum bones because I'm slouching, and the pegs are quite high. My knees feel quite high on this. I suppose it's an adventure bike, so the ground clearance, the peg heights, kind of an important factor, and to be able to stand up on the pegs and have a good riding position stood up, which I've not tried yet. I will give that a whirl, but seating position feels fine. You can stretch your legs out. I can fit my feet flat on the floor when we're riding like this. I'm 6 foot. Well, I tell all the girls I'm 6 foot, but I think I'm about a centimetre under 6 foot. I do have a long body compared to my legs, so I've got quite a long body for sit upright. My legs are sort of your standard regular length legs, I suppose. But I can sit flat-footed on here, and my knees are kind of bent, but they're bent right into the curvature there of the tank, exactly where it looks like they were designed to fit. So it doesn't feel too narrow, it doesn't feel cramped. I can push my knees into the tank if I want, but I tend to ride with my knees quite far out, just so that my clothing and things isn't scuffing nice paintwork on tanks and things like that. Not that it'll matter on something like this, but yeah, I'm just quite used to riding with a gap between my legs and the tank. Right, I was saying before about standing up on the pegs, so let's give that a whirl. So, standing on the pegs, it does force you into a quite forward position. You feel like your weight's a bit more over the front, pushing my heels down. My arms are almost fully locked out. If I bend my legs a little bit, like I was on a trail, I do get a bit loose in the elbows, so that's kind of alright. I am feeling like my left heel is touching something. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's the side stand, you know, like the podgy outy bit to put the side stand down. I can feel my heel touches that when I push my heels down in an off-road riding position. I can still change gears easy enough like that. I can still hook under the gears. That's not a problem. To me, it does feel quite nimble and light, even stood up. I say even stood up. It just feels nimble and light, I guess. Should feel more nimble and... Sure, Mark, you're just talking nonsense. What I mean is, it feels nimble and light when you stood up. I'm amazed at two things with this Osmo Action 4 camera. One is that I've nearly rode now for an hour and just bimbled on and talked all the way, and I'm recording at 4K on one battery, and it's still recording. And if it's not recording, then I've just spent the last hour talking to myself for no reason. I thought I would just hit those speed bumps head on, just to see what it's like. and sat down, it does feel quite firm. The suspension's quite hard. Feels harder than the KTM suspension, that's for sure. I'm probably not going to mess around with the suspension. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Everything's going to be a compromise between on-road and off-road. I'm not going to be hitting things as crazy and as hard as like Chris Northover did on Bike World when he tested one of these, which is one of the main reasons why I bought this bike. But I will be doing road miles and I will be doing off-road miles, so I'll probably just keep it in the factory settings and just see how we get on as a compromise in both worlds. Right, I'm almost home now, so I'm going to call it there, and that'll be the end of this bike collection and pick up an initial review. Overall, very happy with it and look forward to doing some more videos on it. So if you want to see more of that and the comparisons I talked about earlier, then please like and subscribe.